Everybody, if you'll join me in a moment of silence. Sorry, Dr. K, I didn't mean to block your way through there.
That's fine.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Welcome, everyone. It's supposed to be spring. We will call our roll. I am present. Dr. O'Neill.
Present.
Mr. Heater.
Present.
Dr. Bales. Mrs. Barnes-Griffin is traveling. Mr. Urban.
Present.
Mr. Lowe.
Present.
We have a presentation tonight from Special Ed.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Jenny.
Hi. Well, today I thought I would come and see you all and give you a little overview of how our district is providing specially designed instruction to our students. And that's what we call it. When a student has an IEP, we call it that they need specially designed instruction in order to access their curriculum and to be able to move forward and make progress. So just some demographics for you and our funding sources that we have right now. Our child count is what generates our state funding. That's every year, December 1st, we do a state report where we are able to count the number of children who have an IEP or an individual education plan in our district. And you can see in the chart the number of students that we've had over the past few years. Our December count from this past December 1 was 1,055. And our funding comes from some different sources. You'll see that over to the left in the slide. Our Part B federal grants is one, and that is census driven. So based on the census every 10 years, they determine what amount of money that your school corporation is going to receive for special education based on that census. So that's why it's super important for the public out there watching this tonight to know they need to fill out their census, because that's how we get some of our special education and school funding. And so we have a few grants open right now. The fiscal year 22 grant, we have a K-12 and a preschool grant for that. We have our American Rescue Plan grant for K-12 and preschool, and we have our fiscal year 23 grant for K-12 and preschool also. We also do Medicaid reimbursement in our district. We have two ways to gain Medicaid dollars. One is called the Indiana Medicaid Administrative Claiming Grant. And basically, this is super annoying to a lot of our staff, but I ask them to do it anyway for us so we can get the funds. They send surveys out to our staff members who could have any time that they could be talking with parents or students or staff members about how we use Medicaid dollars or how the parents can access Medicaid dollars for their children. So signing them up for a beads waiver or signing them up for any form of a Medicaid waiver is considered that. Also, our nurses and our school counselors and our family navigators can sometimes talk to parents about signing up for waiver services. So if they fill out those surveys for us when they send them to us randomly for everyone on the list, then we're getting anywhere from about $18,000 to $22,000 a quarter just for filling out these surveys. So that's a really significant sum of money just to take 5 minutes to fill out a survey. So I appreciate all of our staff members that do that for us when those come through. We also do what's called fee-for-service, and right now we bill for speech therapy services, we bill for occupational therapy services, and we bill for physical therapy services. And year to date this year, we have accumulated over $193,000 in Medicaid fee-for-service. Just this is reimbursement that comes back to the school for those medical services that we provide as a related service or a special education service. And this has nothing to do, it doesn't take away from the family in any way or their ability to use Medicaid. It is only just extra dollars that are there for schools to claim. So that's pretty important to us. And those fee-for-service dollars are unrestricted. So that's a really great thing for us to have as a school corporation, to be able to draw from those dollars in an emergency. And then education and operation funds also support our special education programs. Anything that isn't able to be paid for by those special education grants and the Medicaid That comes from our education and operations funds to help pay for our special ed teachers and our aides and all of our other staff that we have. Oh, I did want to point out one more thing about the chart. You'll notice that our special ed count has actually gone down. In the past 3 years, it went from 1186 to 1126 to 1055. And the reason for that is when I came to Muncie Schools 4 years ago, I noticed that we had a large amount of students that were still in speech and language services in high school and also in middle school. That's not typical in most school districts. Most of the time, speech therapists will dismiss those students before they hit that middle school age because they don't want them being pulled out of class for speech services and language services anymore at that point, unless it's really needed for their disability. So what we did was we took a really hard look at all of the kids that were still in those services, and what we found was a lot of them actually could have qualified under a different eligibility category that got our school more funding. So we reevaluated a lot of those students or dismissed the ones that really didn't need it anymore. So our count actually went down, but you can see that our money went up because we actually got the students the correct eligibility category, which gave us more money for our students. Okay? All right, next slide. So the disabilities that we serve here in our district come from the federal law, IDEA, which you can see the numbers for our district on this slide. Our largest student population of disabilities being that speech and language category. So across K-12, well, preschool through 12, we have 540 students out of our 1,055 that receive speech and language services. And then you can see the numbers of the other disabilities in that chart as well. There are 3 numbers next to intellectual disability. The first one is for mild intellectual disabilities, the second one is for moderate, and the third one is for severe. So in case you wondered what those 3 different numbers were. And then staffing-wise, our special ed department staffs our special education teachers, our speech and language pathologists, instructional assistants, occupational and physical therapists, behavioral specialists, and program supervisors to help us manage all of the 1,055 case conferences that we have to have with parents, which you can imagine takes a lot of time. We have administrators and school psychologists and our administrative assistants that help us out in the special ed office with all our data and state reporting. So just to give you a little more detail about what we do, we have preschool first. So this is a little guy, I took a picture of him playing with one of his toys in our preschool room over at Central. We actually moved our developmental preschool classroom to Muncie Central this year when the Head Start pulled out of that classroom. So that our high school students who need access to students to work with for their education professionals classes could have access to some students if they wanted to still work with kids after Head Start had left. So we do screening and evaluation of any child right up, if they're referred to us from like what they call First Steps here in Indiana, which is ages 0 to 3 with disabilities. We get them in by their 3rd birthday, but a parent can refer any child ages 3 to 5 to us for an evaluation if they feel like their student has a delay or has any problems with their speech or language. We provide a full continuum of services here in Muncie Community Schools. We have kids with disabilities that are in our general ed pre-Ks out in all of our elementary schools. And then we also have the developmental pre-K for those students who are maybe nonverbal or have a lot more medical needs or are much lower functioning and aren't able to access the curriculum in those general ed pre-Ks. So that is all for preschool. We are part of a special education cooperative. All 7 districts are listed here. That's our logo, which was designed by one of our students here at the MAC, which I absolutely love, for Delaware Blackford Special Ed Cooperative. We are what we call a joint service and supply cooperative, which means all of the districts are able to, we serve as the fiscal agent for all of the different districts. That means I help them with all of their grants and their grant reimbursements, and I help them with ensuring that their programming is stable, and they can call me and I can come out to their districts and help them whenever they need to. Sarah and Emily both help with that as well as my assistant directors. And then our special ed office also helps them if they have any questions with state reporting and all that. Our OTs and PTs service all 7 schools in the cooperative for those services, as well as our blind, low vision, and our deaf, hard of hearing teacher travels around the cooperative. And then we bill out to those districts for the services that we provide for them. So at the elementary level, we have a general class setting, which is just a regular classroom. We have kids with disabilities that are in regular classes. In fact, that's where we want most of them to be because they're able to access that curriculum. And they also have what's called a resource setting in all of our elementaries, which means they're spending anywhere from 40 to 70% of the time in general ed, but maybe some other portion of the day in the resource room getting extra support for that specially designed instruction. We also have what's called separate class placements at EWA, Grissom, and Southview. And so these are classrooms that are self-contained with a special education teacher for most of the instructional day for those students that need a lot more support or have some more behavioral challenges. At the middle school level, we have also the general class students and the resource students in both middle schools. And then we have separate class placements only at Southside Middle School. And the reason we consolidate and try to do that not like in every building is because if we can consolidate those resources, we're able to provide much better instruction for them. And then also they can share resources as opposed to having to create a sensory room for each building or a place for a changing table in every building or things like that that we would need to do. So we're able to better get a return on investment on our dollars. Muncie Central High School has a full continuum of services. They have general class, they have resource, and they have separate classrooms. We are really super excited, and I'll let Emily say anything if she wants to, about some programs that we're bringing to the MAC next year for some of our special education students. We are just, this has been Emily's dream for 4 years to be able to do this, and we finally are gonna make it happen. We are gonna develop, it's called an employment skills program for 11th and 12th graders with disabilities who want to come to the MAC to learn job skills. And we are having them bring the print shop over to the MAC, and our students are going to run the print shop for our district with the help of our print shop people who work there now, and also a special education teacher and aide. So they're going to be the ones doing the print shop. They'll be doing some custodial things around the admin building, and they'll also be doing things like shredding or any other little the IT folks, I think, are going to have them help unpack boxes when things come in. So we're going to give them some jobs here around the MAC, and we're going to do a couple of days a week of real job skills training, as well as them running those programs. But those 11th and 12th graders are able to be here for a half day in the afternoon to do that. And then our super seniors, because I don't know if all of you know this, but we keep our kids with IEPs who are not diploma track until they can age out at age 22. So once those kiddos reach that 18 to age 22, they're technically adults, but they still have the ability to stay in school to get that free appropriate public education. So we call them super seniors. And we're developing a program for super seniors that's an internship program in the morning here at the MAC with that same teacher and aide who are going to take them out and work with community businesses to get them job skills. So we might partner with something like, I don't know who we've decided yet, but I'll just throw out an example of when they do in Anderson, because they have something similar to this in Anderson. One of the partnerships I know they have is with Dollar General, where they take the kids learn to unbox the items and stock the shelves and do all that. And then many of those students actually get hired by these businesses if they can do a good job after they leave the program. So we're pretty excited that we'll be able to have our super seniors have a half day where they can come to the MAC just like any other student. Next. So this is another program that I've felt very strongly about since I got to Muncie. As most of you know, I used to work in Madison County, and in Madison County they have what's called a day treatment program that's between St. Vincent's and the Anderson Center. And this it's a therapeutic day school where students with severe mental health needs and some behavioral challenges can actually go to school there as well as get a therapeutic individual, group, and family counseling as part of their educational program if they're unable to maintain in a school building. And I thought it was a really great thing for us to have in Madison County. I was able to access that for several of my students, and it was super successful. And I thought, why do we not have something like this in Delaware County? Because now when I have a student like that, I have to bus them out of county to find any kind of program even similar to that if I have a student with that need. And we actually have one with that need that's out of county right now. And I know for a fact his parent would much rather have him here in district. So I just think it's really an awesome opportunity. So I reached out to the YOC, and Jeff is here. He's going to talk to you here in just a second about developing a day treatment program for grades 3 to 6, where we have kiddos that they just really struggle with behavioral challenges, self-regulation, and sometimes academics, sometimes not. Sometimes their academic levels are fine, but the behavioral challenges are so overwhelming that they're being suspended, and they're, it's just not tenable to keep them in the school building in all the programs that we have. So we're going to develop a day treatment program out there. They're giving us the space to do that at the YOC. We will exhaust all of our options here in district before we ever go there. And they must have a true mental health need and an IEP with an IQ above 75 to be able to access that program. So there are some requirements to being able to go there. And then, of course, we'll need to apply for excess cost funding for a student who would need to attend a program like that, because there is a daily rate that's higher than what it would be in a school building. So we're going to supply the teacher for that classroom, and the YOC is going to provide a behavioral specialist and a program director that is a mental health counselor. So they're going to work together to provide these students with not only their education, but also that therapeutic need and the wraparound that the whole child needs to help that family, with the hope and the goal to transition back to public school by high school. So they can enter the program from grades 3 to 6, but they would need to transition out by 8th grade and return to Central for high school. I think we're putting our max at 8 students for the first year in that classroom to see how the program goes. And if it goes well, then we are also thinking of opening a second classroom the following year if everything goes as we hope. So we are in the process of getting all of that ready to go for fall. We also have, and this is not a special ed thing, but I threw it in my presentation because Mr. Grimm couldn't be here tonight and he couldn't talk to you about it. And so I told him I would take that. Mr. Grimm and I have been working with Jeff also for an alternative school classroom at the YOC. They have the space, and it's wonderful for us to try to access this for some of our students who are kind of at that last chance where we don't want them to be expelled. We want to keep most of our students with us and in a program, in some kind of an educational program. So this is really meant to reduce expulsions. They don't have to have an IEP to be in this one, but they can have one. It would go through their case conference committee. We are providing an MCS teacher and an aide. And I had written down a 1-to-5 ratio, but I hear since then they might be starting a little lower than that. And then the goal is to transition back to school within 1 grading period, or at most a semester. That would be the goal, is if you go there, we're sending you for this period of time for you to try to get it together, and then hopefully be able to come back and join the building again. So this isn't like a permanent placement for them. It's like, instead of being expelled, here's what we're gonna let you try. And then it will have a skill building component for social and emotional learning, as well as the academic component, so that we can help teach the students the skills they need to behave in their regular school. So this is something that has been something I've been wanting to do for a while, but I actually wrote it as a SMART goal for myself last year. Indiana's Article 7 for special education recommends that school districts have a special education parent advisory council. What I have found out after talking to many directors is that is very rare. Most school districts do not have it because it's recommended and not required. Most schools don't do it. So I really did want to do that. I felt like that was one way we could help build some bridges here in Muncie with our parents and build some of that family engagement. So I reached out to some select parents that I thought might be interested in helping me get it started. And now we're opening it up to any parent of a child with disability who wants to participate. Right now we meet monthly. It's been virtual this year because parents have had, what they shared with me is they need childcare if we're all gonna get together in the evening, and that's hard for them. So I've been talking with some folks about partnering with a community partner to provide childcare so we can do it in person next year. So again, we started it we began with our very first meeting last May of 2022 when I got like our little small core group together, and we've been doing that monthly. And every time we meet, we have such a good time because we always start with introductions and we do some parent education at the beginning of every meeting. I try to do like a little 10-minute mini lesson on something about special education for them. And then sometimes we have a guest speaker. Sometimes we talk about, I try to like elicit their advice or input about a thing I'm thinking about doing, and I get their input, but it's never like, when we all agreed right from the very beginning, this was not going to be talking about their own children, and it wasn't going to be talking about complaints or staff or anything like that. It was going to be, I would give them topics and they would give me feedback about what they would like for Muncie Community Schools as a whole as a parent of a child with a disability. So it's been really good, and it keeps growing. This year, for one of my SMART goals, I decided that what was needed was a training page. One of our things that we heard in process checks with all of our schools was that we need more training on this, or we need aides to be better trained, or we need, things like that. So I had Cindy, thank you, Cindy, help me develop a training page on our MCS website that's easily accessible. And I have been recording trainings about different topics. One of them is about 504 for administrators. One of them is about, I believe, writing good IEPs that I created for new special ed teachers. And then we have a bunch of different links there to YouTube videos with different topics for paraprofessionals, so that when we onboard new staff, we can direct them to this page to get a lot more information. And we're going to continue to add to this as we go. So this will be someplace, and actually this can be accessed by the public too. So if anyone is wanting to look at my training page, you can go to the MCS website and access it from there. I believe, which one is that under, Cindy? Do you remember? It's under
your departments and students.
the department. Okay, and I think it's under the public links. There's like a shortcut from the main page too. So it's there, and it's open for other people to use as well. So our co-op can access it as well if they need to. And last but not least, child find is a responsibility of a public school. It's one of the main things that we were tasked with in the federal law, is making sure we're finding kids with disabilities who need services. And that's everyone's responsibility. So if you're out there and you know of a child with a disability who is not getting services, please reach out to our office and let us know so that we can get them evaluated and make sure they're being served. Because I know for a fact there has to be some more out there. And so we always keep looking and keep sharing our information so that we can make sure we're serving all of the kids that need to be served in Delaware County. Okay? Okay, that's it from me. Questions?
Any questions for Ms. Smithson?
Yeah.
Come on up, Jeff. I just want you to be able to say something too. I forgot. I didn't bring you up at the end of the slide.
Is it easy for you to rewind to the numbers?
Sure.
The
Oh,
1,055?
so you'll have to put it back up for me.
Put it back up.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're fine. Which slide?
1,055.
The second one, I believe.
I'm-
Oh, I'll go back. There we go.
No, the one
One
with the
more.
numbers, the makeup, the 1,055.
Oh, the one with
yeah.
the disabilities. That one?
The speech and language impairment jumps out, 504, it's half of the number. Is that pretty typical for other school corporations to have that
Yes.
percentage of, okay.
Yeah, and many of those also are preschool. The majority of our preschool students enter the program through speech and language, and then we find they have other issues later on once they get into academic learning. But speech and language is very common, and it can be anything from a kiddo who just needs help with their R to very difficult like stuttering or other issues that are a little more complex. And that also includes language impairments, which is where there's something going on with the child where their language development is delayed, and we need to help teach them to talk or teach them correct grammar structure for when they're talking. Many times you'll see little ones that use the wrong thing, like they'll say me go to the store instead of I go to the store. We train them with the right correct language to be able to use moving forward. So our speech therapists are very, very important to our programs, and probably some of the smartest people I ever met, because they know so much about language development. And good language development is a precursor to good reading.
You know, it seemed like it's so important because they're so conscious about their speech, and which might draw them back later on into their education.
Absolutely,
So
and
really
that's
important.
one of the reasons this special education service is because not having those issues with your speech and not being able to communicate appropriately can cause behavioral issues if they're frustrated. So it's one of the reasons we try to help all the kids who have those needs.
Thank you.
Any additional? Mr. Helm, how are you this evening?
I'm very well, thank you.
Jeff Helm from YOC.
Thank you. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the Muncie Schools for their 25-year partnership with the Youth Opportunity Center. The work that is done out there by the teachers and the administrators of the school is critical to the success, the stability, the overall treatment of the youth in our care. So we're very excited about both of these programs, especially since one of those programs hasn't been available to kids in Delaware County, and that's central to our mission, is the care, welfare, safety, permanence, well-being of kids in Delaware County. So we're really looking forward to that, and we just have a great deal of appreciation. We don't take it for granted, the critical role that you play. And we know that in any kind of long-term partnership, there's give and take. And so we feel like every time that we have a challenge, the schools have been there for us, and we hope that you feel the same and that we are there for the schools, and we're looking forward to extending this partnership.
Thank you very much. And likewise, we're extraordinarily pleased with the opportunity to grow this partnership further. And I know we had discussions early this year, and those have borne fruit. So please thank your board, and we're extremely gratified that we've been able to move it forward. Any additional questions for either? Anybody? So are you satisfied, is your team satisfied that our screening is thorough and that the 1,055 is close to what we're actually seeing in terms of needs in our classrooms?
So most special education, and I don't know, I'll try to make this simplified, but it's not. Most schools, when they look at who to provide that specially designed instruction to, are going to look at their grade level norms, okay? So if our grade level norms are where they should be on grade level, then we would probably have a lot fewer students who would qualify for services. But because of, where our data is right now, which is not a secret to anyone, our norms are a little lower. So what may seem like to most people that we should have more students that qualify for services, what we're trying to do is really help through the MTSS process, that multi-tiered system of supports, to support tier 1 until our tier 1 is back to grade level. And then that will, hopefully at that point, really weed out who the kids with disabilities are versus the kids who are just behind or have delays. Because delays and disabilities are two different things. Delays can be made up, or disabilities, that's kind of a permanent thing. So we just have to learn to help those kids and accommodate for that. So sometimes it gets a little gray when your data looks like some of our schools, but we are trying to support all of the kids that we can support, who we really feel are in the most significant need of that specially designed instruction. And then we're also trying through the MTSS process to support tier 1 to get them back to where our grade level norms are where they should be.
What's your greatest challenge?
Oh, my greatest challenge, do you agree with me? Is it staffing? Yeah, I would say staffing. Special education teachers, good special education, highly qualified, licensed special education teachers are extremely hard to find. And we have a lot of special ed teachers who are not fully licensed yet and are working on that license through a transition to teaching program. They're doing amazing, though. Let me just say that, I'm not disappointed by any of the folks we have hired under those programs, but I really feel like it is difficult because there's a lot of burnout in special education. I mean, it's hard work. I tell new special educators when they ask me, what's the one thing you would tell me? I said, just be ready to fail a lot. And that's how you build more tools in your toolbox. You try something with a child and it fails, and then you try something new and you try until you find it and you never give up. And that's what a special education teacher does. So sometimes that can weigh on you after a while, but learn to celebrate the small wins and, all of those pieces. So no, I think staffing is probably the hardest because we do have quite a bit of turnover in our paraprofessionals especially, or a lot of vacancies in that area. So it's a lot harder to hire those folks at the lowest pay in our staffing.
So if you and your team, working with Dr. Young, have thoughts on how to address that challenge, please bring them to us.
We talk about it quite a bit, don't we?
Okay.
We do talk about it quite a bit. And like I said, we thank you for the amazing pay raises and all of the things that you have done as a board for our district, because without that, I don't think we would have as many special ed teachers as we do have. So that's pretty huge.
Well, it just, keep in mind that as we move forward, our goal is to continue improving always. And if this is a challenge and there are other ways to meet that effectively in a manner that benefits
Sure.
students who are clearly in need of our very best, then let us know.
I sure will. Always.
Any additional questions?
I just always like to take this time. Jenny and then her assistant director, Sarah Price and Emily Collins, they just do amazing work. They are such team players. It doesn't matter what we need. I know they hate to see some of my text messages, but they're always like, sure, we can do that. So I appreciate them all. They care deeply about our students, about our teachers in our schools, the families. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you very much. We are on to our CEO comments.
Well, good evening. I'll start with some of our good news. Today, I was notified by the Ball Brother Foundation that Kyra Zick, who's a teacher at Westview Elementary, is named the recipient of the Excellence in Teaching Award for Delaware County. So that's very exciting for her, very well deserved. Not only does she do great things in the classrooms, she's also very involved in the community, and so we're very proud of that. Today, we attended a ribbon cutting ceremony at Northside with our PDS liaisons at the secondary level, and so they are having so many immersive classrooms and working with our teachers that they actually have 2 classrooms now where they rated the spiritware at Ball State, and they decorated the rooms, and so that was exciting that they'll have students over there all the time. Nora Quirk was one of 90 students throughout the state to receive an award by the Indiana Principal Association, named one of our Indiana Academic All-Stars. I also wanted to share Blast Off to Kindergarten has begun. That is in partnership with By Five and the United Way. Last week, we had our first night at Northview Elementary, and that's where we have the kindergarten teachers are in different classrooms, and the students who will be in kindergarten next year get to experience a little bit of what kindergarten's going to be like. Their parents are there watching. They all get a bag of supplies to take home to keep practicing throughout the summer. They are able to get on the bus and do a little trip around the school on a school bus, and they go into the cafeteria, and of course they get milk and cookies. Who would like something better than that? And so it's a nice night. So I'm going to take time just to announce when the other nights will be. If we have students not enrolled yet for kindergarten, you can show up at any of these schools on any of these nights and we'll get you registered, or you can show up at any school any day and we'll get you registered. And so coming up May 1st at Longfellow, May 2nd, East Washington Academy, May 3rd, Westview, May 8th at Southview Elementary, and May 16th at Grissom Elementary from 5:30 to 7:30. And then lastly, I wanted to share that this morning, we had a student bring a gun to the school at Central. And, we hear about things like this in other schools around the state and around the nation. And unfortunately, it hit us in Muncie today. But that is why we do security checks. And those security checks work this morning. So I really want to say kudos to our security team. I know I see Robert Scaife here tonight. And then also to our administrative staff, who were right there with the security team as we do our security checks. So we are always trying to look for ways to make our schools as safe as possible. I know Chuck and Robert met today about some grant opportunities, and so we'll always continue to look for additional ways to bring additional security into our schools. So thank you for that, and as I said, it was a sad day, but we are glad that it worked and we were able to confiscate the weapon before any students were inside the school.
Okay, any questions for Dr. K? Okay. Mr. Klotz, any comments? Okay. We'll move to the consent agenda. We have in your packets approval of minutes from the last meeting, personnel, fundraisers, contract renewal for food service management, claim approval, and approval of the consent agenda. Do I have any questions regarding the matters in your packet as it concerns the consent agenda? If there are no questions, would entertain a motion to approve. Dr. Bales has moved to approve. Second. Mr. Irvin, second. No further questions. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Dr. Reynolds, MCH course Exploring Education Professions.
Yeah, yep. Hey, do we have any new hires with us today, Mr. Smith? I mean, I think, I know you, but you might know one, right?
So is it Shaylee Smith?
And then I think
Okay.
is there someone else?
Yep,
in
and
the
someone else,
background?
yep.
And Melinda McComas. Okay, so we have Melinda McComas, preschool lead teacher with us, and Shaylee Smith, elementary teacher at Northview. Congratulations. Do either of you want to have a chance to visit for a bit? Shaylee, what grade you going to teach?
Second.
Wow. You excited?
I'm very excited, yes.
So are you just finishing up your undergrad?
Yes. Yep.
It doesn't seem possible that you're that age.
Right.
And so Northview, second grade, right?
Yes.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Melinda, preschool lead teacher at Grissom?
Yes.
Where are you from?
TRC Hempstead.
Great. Well, their loss is our gain. And we are extraordinarily pleased to have you. We are very proud of the preschool program. Let both of you know if there are things you need. Is Heidi here?
She's not, tonight she had another obligation.
Okay, Heidi White. Tell her I said, seek her out. Anything you need, call Heidi. Seriously, welcome, and we're delighted to have you. Thank you, Dr. Reynolds, for bringing that up. Okay, I think I mispronounced the emphasis on that last course, so I'm going to try it again. MCHS course Exploring Education Professions. Is that better?
That's great. That's great. So we were contacted by the Indiana Department of Education. They had initiated a new course, the Exploring Education Professions, for 9th and 10th graders is the target audience, and asked if we would be interested in that. So we had a few conversations with the IDOE, had a look at the draft course description and what that entailed. So kids will have the opportunity in 9th grade to begin to explore the education profession, learn about the history of education, kind of foundational skills about education, the pathways on how to get degrees and and licensure, and aptitude and responsibilities about careers in education. Not just teachers, but counselors, administrators, the full gamut of what you can do in an educational field. So we had a conversation with really Caleb, because it's a career and technical education intro course. Eric Grimm and Chris and his team at Central, very interested in piloting the class. We had some survey information from students about careers, and we had some interest in it already. So with your approval, we would like to add this to our course curriculum handbook this year. Mr. Shemetta is going to be teaching that class, so we're really excited about that opportunity for our kiddos.
Okay, any questions regarding this? Surely needed. Okay, entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Mr. Lowe's moved to approve it.
Second.
Dr. O'Neill's seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Move on to financial report.
Thank you. Included in your board packet tonight is the financial notes, financial results for the month of March 2023. Always happy to report we received our state basic grant for the month of March and still on pace to receive $43.6 million of state basic grant. I know that number could fluctuate up or down just a bit based on the final numbers or final budget that the state finally approves for us, but it's still, that number is still very strong, very good number from the state funding formula. Our head count is up over last year. Our payroll is running about $1 million over last year at this time, but that's due to the head count being up, plus some of the pandemic stipend that we had paid. Our overall checkbook balance at the end of March, all funds, still over $36.1 million. That's still a very strong balance. Also very strong balance, that includes the education fund. That was over $16.2 million. Still on target to be in a positive cash flow position at the end of 2023 for the education fund. And we're still paying back our state loan per the original agreement. That's down to $10.3 million. So we're on target with all that. You have your normal graphs that I like to show. Normally, you're always down on your overall checkbook balance in the months of April and October. That's because you're right before receiving your local property taxes. You start receiving those in May and November. So that's why you'll always see the dips in that graph around those particular months, so that you can just see at least it's trending upwards. So that's a good trend. So that really, 3 months in, like I said, not officially finished until you get to 12 months. So that kind of concludes my report.
Okay, do we have any questions for Mr. Jerome? I want to take a moment. We don't do this enough, but Brad, your work is, and your team's work is always first rate, and we're extraordinarily fortunate to have you. And
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Have a good team. So pretty much.
Any questions before we move to address that? Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Been moved. I'll second it. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. We have a bid on interactive display boards, is that right?
Yeah, also included in your board packet was the Steve Spradlin did the heavy lifting on that with the interactive display boards. This was for Muncie Central High School, and he brought that back for the board to approve tonight.
And so these are teaching tools that are used within the classroom?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
And is that our total classrooms? I mean, those are all. the
That
class-
was every classroom that needed one, sure.
Okay.
So the intent was to get, Central was the last building to receive really an upgrade to their projection system, overhead LCD projectors, and they were many of those were on their last leg. So we had some grant dollars, I believe, that helped us do a refresh there. So the interactive boards provide more flexibility for moving them around the room. Better integration capabilities with the teacher device, and just more flexibility in general.
So do those work like big iPads then?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much.
What happened to all the film strip projectors?
We probably have them in a closet, Jim. If you really want one, we can find one for you.
I'm also curious, are they tied into any alerts that might need to be activated in the school? Could they display that? These
Weather or
spring
otherwise,
break.
yeah.
Weather or other events?
So I think that is part, I think it can be.
It can be,
Yeah, I
okay.
think it's through maybe, I think we have that capability now through WebEx. Some utilize it more than others, but we're looking at either continuing that WebEx or maybe even expanding our Google Suite has that as well.
Okay. Any additional questions regarding the interactive display boards? Would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Okay. Mr.
Second.
Will. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Mr. Jerome, additional appropriation.
Yeah, thank you. What we're doing here tonight with this part of the board agenda is permission to advertise for an additional appropriation. I'm just asking the board permission to advertise for this item. This would allow me to have an additional appropriation of $2.5 million additionally for rainy day fund for 2023, as well as an additional $2,520,500 for debt service fund. The funds are currently available in the rainy day fund balance, as well as they will be available for the debt service fund. When the state approved our budget back in December, the DLGF auditor knew we would have to do this because of the late approval of our 2023 bonds. That's why the debt service fund was approved as it was. But fortunately, I can say this does not result in any increase in tax rate or anything such as that. The funds will be available, and the funds are available for rainy day fund. This is just giving us the approval to spend those funds this year in 2023. So that's what we're asking the board tonight, is just approval for me to advertise for this additional appropriation hearing that we would have later next month. So
the additional appropriation from rainy day is 2.5 million, correct?
Right.
And then the 2.520 comes from the debt service fund,
That is-
a separate fund.
That is correct, both separate funds.
And the debt service fund is allocated by the state for just what it sounds like, debt service, correct?
That is correct, and we'll have a little over $12 million of debts that we will pay on our long-term debts for the debt service fund, and this will allow us to do that, and we will receive enough local property taxes to be able to do that.
And so that would reduce the rainy day fund to basically what, 10.2?
It'll reduce it some, but then we'll replenish it before the end of this calendar year as well.
Okay.
So that's still in our plan and our target to be able to replenish it at least $3 to $3.5 million of rainy day. So we're
Okay.
still in a very good position with that.
Okay, and that was my next question.
Yes.
Obviously with the state debt sitting at 10.3, I think clearly having some general correlation between rainy day and what that debt is, I think is probably best practice.
And believe it or not, in 2024, that's when we've gone 3 years here now where we've been able to, we take that debt service payment out of the education fund as a line item. We'll then start taking the debt payment out of rainy day.
After 24?
In 2024.
Or 5?
24, 25 through 2028, right?
Okay. So as long as we're in a position to manage that.
Yes.
Then I'm comfortable. Any other questions regarding the additional appropriation? Would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, so Mr. Heater will call the motion, Mr. Lowe will call the second. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we have support staff compensation. Exciting. Who's going to present here? Do you want to present?
Yeah.
Mr. Heater?
On behalf of a lot of hard work that was done, I'll just briefly report, and then I'll allow the rest of the committee to add anything you like. What you see in the packet is the recommendation from the administration and with consultation from our committee. There were 3 things that were taken into effect, I think primarily with the list of increases. One is our need to invest. Now is the time that it's important for us to make sure that we're providing as much and as effective a compensation to our support staff as possible. You heard Jenny talk about the need for assistance and the support staffs that really help make the schools run are so critical to the building managers, which is the principal. And so we felt there's a need to invest. Secondly, there is a market influence. There is no question today that inflation in the labor market has a significant impact on our ability to attract and retain support staff. And then, again, due to the hard work of everybody out in the school system, as well as Dr. K and Brad, we're in a fiscal position to be able to go out and invest a little more resource in our support staff. So what you see here is a recommendation that delivers a $219,000 increase in salaries to this group of staff. It's about a 4.1% increase based upon current compensation. And before I go to the last item here, Brittany and Jim, anything to add to?
I'd just like to, again, quickly thank Brad. He did a lot of work to bring this information to us, and Dr. Kiyakowski. So with this information, it gave us a lot to work with to make decisions. So as you say, much needed, and we have the opportunity. So, yeah.
Brittany.
Again, just echoing that Brad makes our job a little easy, so we can't really take a lot of credit. He brings a pretty good blueprint, and we kind of just nitpick at it.
Yeah.
But I'm really proud that we continue to be in a financial position to do this every year, so I'm excited.
I'd also add, whatever we do here, Dia is the person who gets to act on it, and there's a lot of work there. And so thank you. Dr. Bell. Second part of the recommendation is something that we believe we ought to try, and that is a retention stipend. One of the challenges we have, we talked about earlier, is the turnover, particularly in our support staff. We've been able to reduce turnover at the teacher level, which we think is going to continue to pay dividends. So in this proposal is a retention stipend. So for those support staff who are with us at the end of this year and are here with us in the fall, they'll receive a $500 stipend. In addition, one of those challenges today is making sure that we have the right number of people in the building all the time. So attendance becomes very, very important for every business, every school. But in terms of trying to incent attendance, we're also proposing that we pay a $500 stipend at the end of the first semester if a support staff person is not in pay loss status, which means they have not used all of the allotted paid time off. And in addition, an additional $500 at the end of the second semester if in fact they have not exceeded their amount of time off. So that is a recommendation, Mr. President. Is there any you guys want to add anything to that? Did I state that correctly, Brad?
You did. And about this time a year ago, if you remember, we had paid a $2,000 stipend, and this was an attempt to try to be creative and spread it out over the year to bring people back, as well as reward people for coming back and reward people making sure they try to come to work. And that helps our classrooms and helps our teachers. So we appreciate the board's encouragement of our creativity that we came up with these amounts. So.
Any additional questions? Thank you to the committee. That was Jim Lowe, Brittany Bales, and Dave Heater. Thank you to Dr. Young and Brad Jerome and Dr. K, Dr. Reynolds for putting all this together for us. To those with us tonight and watching, and please share. We are so very lucky to have our administrative assistants and support within our schools, and you are critical to our mission, and we hope this reflects our recognition of that. So with that, if there's nothing further, we'll entertain a motion. Dr. Bales has moved.
Second.
Mr. Heater has seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. We have the parking easement agreement, which the language was adjusted, I think, today by Mr. Day, and I believe the request is approval subject to final
Yes.
working out of details by the lawyers. And
That is correct. He wanted us to review the parking easement, subject to final review by administration and council.
okay, and I have received word that they had no issues with Mr. Day's language, so that is a positive. So with that, do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion's been moved to approve. Anybody have a second?
Second.
Mr. Heaters seconded. Any questions? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. We are on to now, I believe we're going to adjourn for a moment the stated board meeting, and we're going to convene a public hearing on the proposed project that is on your agenda. There will be an opportunity for public comment regarding the matters at hand. After the presentation by the administration and its advisor, there'll be an opportunity for the public to make comment about the project if you wish. We will accommodate that request. We would ask at the hearing that any comments regarding the project are limited to 3 minutes and that the topic be limited to the proposed project under consideration. The notice of this hearing was published as legally required. At this time, I would ask that Dr. Kay explain the purpose of the hearing, unless you would like for me to do it.
Or her designee.
And Brad.
Did you guys
Just trying to help you out.
obviously talked before this started? So, Mr. Jerome, if you want to launch into
Right.
the statutory code section.
Right, and we're following along the script that was given to us by Jane Herndon and Stephen Joan and Alex Penninger and.
I wasn't going to tell anybody about that, but that's okay.
Okay. Pursuant to Indiana Code, before a school corporation may spend more than $1 million to build, repair, or alter a school building that will be financed by a lease or bonds, it must hold a public hearing at which explanations of the potential value of the project to the school corporation community are given. These public hearings and the adoption of the resolutions is the beginning of this legal process. These resolutions establish the financial terms of the proposed project. So what I'd like to do right now is I'll just keep going along with the explanation of the project.
Please.
Okay. What this particular project is, it's kind of phase 2 of our 2023 bond project for Muncie Central High School. And what it's doing, this project will continue on the project that was started a year ago at the Muncie Central football stadium. This particular project will add to the north side of the what used to be the track. It'll have now a locker room and a restroom facility, as well as also potentially restroom facility on the south side. I do have Mr. Brood out here with us from Schmidt and Associate if I'm not able to explain that correctly. The beauty of this particular project is we started a year ago. Of course, it produced we're doing the turf field this year, the home bleachers on the east side, as well as the new track that changed the paperclip size track that we had before. So this will be more legitimate sized track. What this does is put the facilities there on the north side of the track. That will be done in the summer of 2024. So this is why it's kind of a split-phased project. Baker Tilly, is our finance consultants. We are paying for this project of $6.1 million over 2 payments. So it's like a 2.5 year payment process. That's why it is tax neutral. So that's one really important item to publicize, is when this project begins, we're not increasing the tax rate in the debt service. So that's why it may seem like, just like in this particular year, our overall debt service went up over $12 million. Went from $9 million to $12 million, but we were paying for our project in 2 years for the current project we're doing, plus 2 years for this project, but we're keeping it tax neutral. So with that being said, getting back to our script, that kind of explains the project that we have. It's tax neutral, 6.1 million. Will be there on the north side of the current track, where you can see right now has a bunch of fencing, and they're almost ready to lay the field turf on it. So that concludes my part of the script. Anything I have forgotten, Mr. Brudout? Does that explain it correctly?
Yes, you did. It'll be a locker room building. There'll be multiple locker rooms in there. There'll be office staff in there as well. There'll be a restroom concession building as part of that, on the east side to be kind of the first phase of the restroom concession. Brad mentioned a south side restroom concession building that'll be a future phase, future project.
And this is about 7,700 square feet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, 7,700 square feet, which does include that kind of restroom concession portion that'll serve the home grandstand, go into the north, and then there'll be a south one that'll serve home and visitors on that side as well in a future project. But this project is really replacing what was torn down under the existing grandstands, with providing new grandstands, just the way they're structured. We're moving the spaces that were under those grandstands that get damaged by water and a lot of just weather from on top of the grandstands. It's best just to move those out from underneath the grandstands, and that's why we're creating a new building on the north side of the football field.
And one thing that's worthy to note too, Schmidt and Associates took us on a road trip, field trip, if you will, last August, where we did tour and see some projects that they had designed, including these types of structures as restroom and locker room facilities down around Indianapolis and Lawrence, and some other different places to give us some ideas. And our current administration was there with us, as well as our football coach and athletic director. So they have all seen and witnessed this type of facility. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jerome. Under Indiana Code 20-26-7-37, would also note that from an educational and community perspective, these projects are very much in need. The existing football stadium and stands were approaching 75 years old. The locker room facilities were in really poor condition. The track, as has been noted, was not consistent with competition level track, and the field also, it places our student athletes in a position in the community where they will have a facility to be proud of and to compete at in a safe manner, and to keep our visitors safe in the grandstands. Obviously, we are pleased to move it forward, so I did want to cover that under the statute. Now, at this point, we are opening this matter up to a public hearing. Does anybody wish to be heard on this project? Anybody here wish to be heard on the project? Would note again that based upon, again, the astute management of our financial team at MCS, aided by Baker Tilly, this is a tax-neutral transaction. Any public comment whatsoever? Okay. Having thrice asked and not received any takers, Mr. Jerome, I believe we move on to the next phase, which is a motion and a second to adopt the project resolution.
That is correct.
So do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Irvin's moved.
Second.
Second by Dr. O'Neill. Any discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Mr. Jerome, are you in a position to summarize any reimbursement resolution?
Yeah, the reimbursement resolution allows us to reimburse Muncie Schools for any expenses we may incur ahead of time before the bonds would be sold. So this is just a little bit of housekeeping, if you will, just in case we have to incur any expense ahead of time before those bonds get sold later this year.
And this resolution is required by law. So at this point, do I have a motion and a second for the reimbursement resolution?
Move to approve.
Mr. Lewis moved to approve.
Second.
Dr. O'Neill seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. At this point, would entertain a motion, I believe, to adjourn the public hearing. We have Mr. Heaters moved. Do I hear a second? We have a second from Dr. Bales. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we will stand adjourned. Dr. Bell, I think I called you Dr. Young earlier, and I apologize for that. I received a note just a second ago. So my heart was pure. So I'm going to leave this note right here. If it's any consolation, I'm still referring to my wife by her maiden name. So 35 years in. So we are on to dialogue with the board and future recommendations. If the board will indulge me just a moment, I want to take this opportunity, following up what we just did. I think it's important to not only look in the rearview mirror as a board. We're approaching our 5th year of this partnership and endeavor. And we have had some successes, we've had some challenges. I think on balance, clearly we've moved things forward. There's work remaining to be done, but I do want to take a moment again as it concerns, again, the project here and projects that are on the horizon. And I spoke at a Habitat breakfast years ago when I was active on that board. And my theme that morning was pride of place and significance of place as it concerned, in that instance, families who were getting a home for their children and just the security that provided for those families and particularly the children of the family. And when I think about Muncie Community School students and pride of place and the pride within this city in Muncie Central and Muncie Community Schools, it's palpable. And that has become certainly apparent to me in the 30 years I've been part of this community in one form or another. And I want to think about, as a board, when we came on in July of 2018. If you recall, at that time, one of the pressing issues was the field house and the preservation of that iconic building on Walnut Street. We were able to leverage with some really good financial advice, Mr. Heater's assistance, leveraging insurance proceeds to restore the field house to a level where competition could occur. And now we're continuing to go further with the field house where it was wonderful to see this past year. The stands were full for many of those games. The holiday sing was very well attended, and that pride of place that we all experience particularly acutely as children and young people, it remains with me as a 57-year-old man. And I think about the football field and, the many, many remarkable athletes who've run on that track, who've played on that field, who've attended events there, and putting that in a position as we're doing right now, where it's something with which we, our students, their parents, can be rightfully proud. As you drive up Walnut Street and see that work, it's remarkable. And so, I think honoring our past and looking forward to not resting while our students lack certain advantages to which they should be accorded. And that would include this project that's on the horizon with the YMCA. We currently have a 6-lane pool, which doesn't, I believe, qualify us for certain competition. We're looking at doing an 8-lane pool, which would put us in a much better position. We have extraordinary excitement in the community at large. By the time all the accounting is done, the community, through private donations and partnerships, will contribute $30 million to this project. Just last week, Doug Church, who's a partner at Church Hiddle, the law firm in Noblesville, was a Bearcat swimmer in the 50s. He went on to swim at Indiana University. He showed an interest. He went to breakfast with Chad Zaucha, and he and his firm have now pledged $50,000 to the project. Also, as match funds, he's reaching out to other Bearcat swimmers. He learned to swim at the Y, as most people did until 1974 in this community. We have, if you compare this to the Westfield project, which is where the Y also located on school grounds, Westfield Washington Schools contributed $15 million to that project. The community at large in Westfield, which is on paper, has far higher assessed values than the city of Muncie and Delaware County. The city of Westfield contributed $20 million. In this instance, through private donation, foundation, and partnerships, the community is contributing $30 million. The school corporation is contributing to the pool project a little over $1 million on the pool, $1.5 million, and then $131,000 a year in maintenance cost. What a lot of people don't recognize is that you have a pool in the existing building that's nearly 50 years old. With a 50-year-old pool, and Mr. Lowe and I have communicated about this and run the numbers with Mr. Jerome, all in on maintenance cost on an annual basis, you're looking between $250,000 and $300,000 annually. So $130,000 for the maintenance of an 8-lane pool is significantly less than $275,000, pardon me. That is just one instance, again, of the partnerships that this board and our administration and the community at large has leveraged for the benefit of our students and their families. When asked about the last 5 years and the greatest surprise, for me it was, and I've said this before, it's the extraordinarily complex nature of public education and particularly financing. And I've said to anybody who will listen, the school cannot do this alone. It's taking partnerships at all levels throughout the community to be successful in delivering a first-rate public education to the students of this city. We've established and maintained partnerships with Meridian, Open Door, YMCA, YWCA, Boys and Girls Club, numerous foundation, First Merchants Bank, Old National Bank, Mutual Foundation, the hospital, and numerous others that have contributed mightily to the financial wherewithal and our resource pool for the benefit of our students. This project is another instance of a long-term partnership. The Y has been part of Muncie Community Schools going back, at this point, nearly 80 years. That they're in all of our school buildings on a regular basis. They have a common presence in 5 of our elementary schools on a daily basis. They operate the Mitchell Early Childhood Center, and they do so largely without incident and with a sense of professionalism, which is of great benefit to our children and their families. As we move forward, it is always this board's primary consideration that the safe, affordable, and state-of-the-art access to a first-rate education be provided to all of our students, and we should not rest while that is still out there for us to provide. This is another instance of that, and I'm frankly proud of it, and I'm proud of this board. And so as we continue to form partnerships that, again, leverage resources that are available in this extraordinarily generous community, we should be proud of that. So thank you all for the opportunity to be a little bit long-winded. With that, is there any media? Okay. Anything further? Would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So be it.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Have a good evening, everybody.